You're too old for the children's section. When I was 19, I stopped by my local Borders books to pick up a few birthday presents for my 5-year-old cousin. He was just starting to get into books, and I thought it would be fun to find a few colorful picture books or silly stories to help encourage that. So I made a beeline for the children's section. Borders, for those who remember, was set up in a way that made each section feel distinct. The kids' area was clearly defined. Bright rugs, low shelves, and tiny chairs that practically dared adults to try and sit in them. It was also tucked a little further back in the store, kind of cozy and cut off, perfect for kids and their parents. I browsed for a while, flipping through books with goofy covers and rhymes that made me chuckle more than I'd admit. There's just something about children's books, the mix of absurd humor and bright illustrations, that gets me every time. While I was flipping through one particularly ridiculous book about a dancing hippo, I felt a firm poke on my shoulder. Not a tap, a poke. I turned around and saw a visibly annoyed Borders employee, arms crossed, frown already forming. Without even a hello, she launched into a lecture about how the children's section was only for kids under 12. Adults, especially adults without children in tow, were not allowed. She implied that it was inappropriate for me to be there alone and that I needed to leave immediately. At first, I was confused. Was that really a rule? I tried to explain why I was there, but she wasn't interested. So I nodded, smiled politely, and took 10 steps to the left, standing just outside the carpeted area, still clearly within view, still holding the book. A few minutes later, a couple walked in with 2 small kids. They entered the children's section and started looking around. The opportunity was too perfect. I walked over, friendly as could be, and told them they were welcome to let their children browse, but that unfortunately, adults weren't allowed in the children's section. I added that I'd been told to leave just moments ago for being too old. The parents looked puzzled. One of them asked who I was, and as if on cue, the same employee appeared. She rushed over to apologize profusely, telling them of course they were allowed in the section, and there was no such rule. That was my cue. I raised an eyebrow and reminded her, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, that she had just told me the exact opposite. I asked if I could now return to browsing for my cousin's birthday presents. The couple, clearly amused by the situation, turned to her for an explanation. She fumbled through a weak excuse, but the damage was done. The inconsistency was too obvious. They asked to speak to a manager. The manager came over and calmly asked what had happened. I explained that I'd simply been trying to pick out a few books and was told to leave because of some supposed age rule. After listening, he turned to the employee and said, quietly but firmly, something along the lines of, "We've talked about this." I couldn't catch every word, but it was clear this wasn't the first time she'd overstepped. He turned back to me and apologized, said there was absolutely no policy against adults being in the children's section, and invited me to continue browsing. He even offered to hold any books I selected at the front for me. I smiled, thanked him, and returned to the children's section, where I found a tiny chair and sat down with a book. I didn't say another word to the employee, but every time she glanced my way, I met her gaze with a smile and flipped another page. Eventually, she disappeared into the back of the store. Borders may be long gone, but that day lives on in my memory as a small, perfect moment of petty satisfaction.